Pythagoras, the ancient Greek mathematician behind the triangle theorem taught in every school on earth, was also the founder of a secretive philosophical society with a strict set of rules. No eating beans. No touching white roosters. No sharing the group's teachings with outsiders. Around 500 BC, a mob turned against him and gave chase through the streets. When Pythagoras reached a bean field, he stopped. His own prohibition prevented him from crossing it. The mob caught him there and killed him. The man who formalized the geometry of right triangles was killed because he refused to run through a field of legumes. No last words were recorded. Archimedes of Syracuse is widely regarded as one of the greatest mathematical minds of the ancient world. In 212 BC, during the Roman siege of Syracuse, he was working on geometric diagrams drawn in the sand when a Roman soldier approached him. According to historical accounts, Archimedes told the soldier, "Do not disturb my circles." The soldier killed him on the spot. He was working until the moment he died, and his last recorded words were a defense of his work, not his life. Hypatia of Alexandria was a mathematician, astronomer, and philosopher in the 4th and 5th centuries, one of the most prominent scholars of her era. Her influence in Alexandria made her a target. In 415 AD, a mob seized her, dragged her into a church, and murdered her. No last words were documented. She was killed because of who she was and what she represented, at a time when that alone was considered dangerous. Gerolamo Cardano was a 16th century Italian mathematician who made foundational contributions to algebra and probability theory. He was also deeply invested in astrology and numerology, and at some point publicly declared that he would die on September 21, 1576. When that date arrived and he was still alive, historical accounts suggest he died by suicide in order to preserve the prediction. The claim has never been confirmed. His last words were never documented. Évariste Galois was a French mathematician who, by the age of 20, had developed work that would form the foundation of modern abstract algebra, mathematics that researchers are still building on today. His life outside of mathematics was marked by political arrests and personal conflicts. In May of 1832, he was challenged to a duel. The night before it took place, knowing the outcome was uncertain, he spent the hours until dawn writing out his mathematical discoveries, filling the margins of his pages with notes including the phrase, "I have no time." He was shot the following morning and died the next day from his wounds. Blaise Pascal contributed foundational work in probability theory, projective geometry, and early computing. From the age of 18, he lived with persistent illness, chronic headaches, digestive problems, and what historians believe may have been a neurological condition. He was in near constant physical pain for most of his adult life and increasingly turned to religious faith in his later years, viewing his suffering as a matter of spiritual discipline. He died at 39, most likely from a malignant brain tumor compounded by gastrointestinal illness. His last words were, "May God never abandon me." Leonhard Euler, the Swiss mathematician responsible for much of the notation that modern mathematics still uses today, including the standard representations of E and I, continued working after losing his sight entirely, dictating calculations from memory. He remained productive well into old age. On September 18, 1783, at 76, he spent the morning making calculations related to the recently discovered planet Uranus and time with his grandchildren. That afternoon, he set down his chalk, said "I am dying," and suffered a fatal brain hemorrhage within hours. He died, mid-calculation, at an advanced age with his family nearby. Srinivasa Ramanujan was a self-taught mathematician from India with no formal advanced training who, in the early 20th century, independently developed theorems across number theory, infinite series, and continued fractions, much of it without access to contemporary mathematical literature. When he sent his work to G.H. Hardy at Cambridge, Hardy recognized it immediately as the work of a genuine mathematical mind and arranged for Ramanujan to come to England. There, he collaborated productively but struggled physically. He was a strict vegetarian who found it difficult to maintain proper nutrition in England, and he contracted tuberculosis. He returned to India in 1919, already seriously ill, and died in 1920 at the age of 32. He spent his final days continuing to write down mathematical results. No last words were formally recorded. He left behind notebooks full of theorems that mathematicians are still working to fully prove today. Alan Turing developed the theoretical foundations of modern computing and, during the Second World War, led the effort at Bletchley Park that broke the German Enigma cipher. Historians estimate his work shortened the war in Europe by approximately 2 years. In 1952, Turing was prosecuted by the British government for homosexuality, which was then a criminal offense. He was convicted and subjected to chemical castration as a condition of avoiding prison. On June 7, 1954, he was found dead at his home. A half-eaten apple containing cyanide was found beside him. The official ruling was suicide. His mother and others disputed that conclusion, arguing the exposure was accidental, related to chemistry experiments he conducted at home. The question was never definitively resolved. No final words were recorded. The British government issued a formal apology in 2009. John Nash was an American mathematician whose contributions to game theory earned him the Nobel Prize in Economics in 1994. His decades-long struggle with schizophrenia and his eventual partial recovery were the subject of significant public attention and were later depicted in the 2001 film A Beautiful Mind. In May of 2015, at 86, Nash traveled to Norway to receive the Abel Prize, one of the most prestigious awards in mathematics. On the taxi ride home from Newark Airport following his return, the driver lost control of the vehicle. Nash and his wife were both killed. Neither was wearing a seatbelt. No final words were recorded.